Welcome to our class. It's one class in this series on the elements, and we are going to explore today the water element. I'm really excited about this because the water element in the sort of yogic chakra system is in the belly, and it's sometimes called the sacral chakra because that energy center is said to reside like just right in front of the sacrum. I think about it as the deep belly, as the core, very different than a core tightening, like, from the outside in. But it's a very potent, energetic place for us to explore. That energy center is the center of creativity and a flow of like creating what it is that we want in our lives, what's possible, like stepping into the flow of possibility and allowing ourselves to be moved. That energy center, of course, is the center of pleasure, of sexuality, of sensuality. And I think that if we consider that like allowing ourselves to be moved by our passion, by what it is that's important, by the dharmic call that we have to create what it is ours to create and to put out into the world. So as we connect into this water element, that's one aspect, a large aspect of where we can go with that. Now, I also wanted to talk just a little bit about the emotional body, because emotions are also a part of that watery element. And I see so much confusion or challenges with emotions in the world. Every day we hear another example, whether it's in politics or in society, with mass shootings, with whatever it is that's happening. People do not have very much capacity for coping with, dealing with, taking action on the emotions that they feel. So I see the yoga practice as an opportunity for us to both build strength in our being and capacity to hold our emotional bodies, to build tolerance for what it is that happens inside our inner experience. And sometimes, and I've said this before, but sometimes in these spiritual traditions, I think the way that teachers have spoken about this is that then we should somehow not have the bad emotions, that we should be able to control that. I see it very differently, that it's like as we build tolerance and we can hold space for all that is inside, then we don't have to change the emotion or neglect or push away or not have any particular experience that being human brings to us, but rather we can direct the flow of what it is that we're feeling and direct it in a way that actually serves. It serves us individually and that serves the world. So again, with the water element, I think about riverbanks. And this yoga practice is like helping us to build this capacity and space and openness inside of ourselves, but also to have strong riverbanks that help direct that flow and move us along. And again, connect us into what's important and to what is helpful and to what glorifies life, expands life, supports the movement of life in the world. So I'd like to invite you onto your mat if you're not there already. And you can either sit or you could lie down in constructive rest. I'm going to take just a few moments to center, to tap in, and then we'll get moving. As you come either onto your back or into your seated position, allow your eyes to close and drop back. Begin to invite yourself into presence in your body. In this moment of your being, what's here? Allow the breath to be as it is, but feel that breath flowing in and flowing out. Though it is, of course, of the air element, this quality of flow can also connect us into our watery nature, into the watery flow of what's present. Notice in these first few moments, what is present for you? Be it the way that you feel, an awareness of how you're arriving here right now. How things are going in your life, both the things that feel like they're flowing along with ease and a sense of wanting, that you're enjoying those. And also anything that's up that feels a little more sort of dammed up or slowed down, sticky, not working so well. Not to necessarily put a lot of thought to the content of that, but to create with your conscious awareness a context that this yoga practice can support you in that sort of bigger realm of what you think of as your life. This is a physical, embodied practice. We're going to move the body. But it is a practice that has sort of rings of influence and impact far beyond the movements themselves. This practice is really about, again, those riverbanks of your conscious awareness and being able to bring that into each moment that arises. I'd like to share a sweet Mary Oliver poem, again, just to set the tone for our practice today. She says, "The dream of my life is to lie down by a slow river and stare at the light in the trees, to learn something by being nothing a little while, but the rich lens of attention. The dream of my life is to lie down by a slow river and stare at the light in the trees, to learn something by being nothing a little while, but the rich lens of attention." Now bring your hands either onto your heart or palm to palm in front of your heart. I'm going to enter into movement of this quality of reverence and presence. You can make your way up to standing. And have a blanket nearby. We're going to open it up like this and put it on the mat in a few moments so you can have it sort of ready to go. And you can have your blocks also. And have you have one block at the far end of each side of the mat. And as you come up to standing, take a moment to come into your standing position, feeling your feet on the ground, and give yourself a moment to sway back and forth, taking your weight on one side and then the other, and then letting your spine begin to sway a little. We're going to enter the river. Have your knees a little soft and easeful. And as you step down into each foot, you could imagine kind of sinking into mud a little bit and then getting this watery connection into your body. And you can have your eyes softly open, or you might even want to close them to see. And just imagine now kind of being in the lazy river, the slow flow of water. And allow that movement to be expressed into and through your body. Every once in a while, do a nice mouth exhale. Letting tension, any quality of holding in the body to drop away. Let your head flow with the rest of your body. You might move your jaw around a little bit. You can even bring your hands up and give a little massage or flow down. And then let your arms start to swing a little bit more. Even perhaps coming into a very gentle, warming twist. When you take your weight into your feet, take them fully into your feet, even if the body kind of flows off your center of gravity. And like all rivers, shift and change as they move along on their way back to the ocean. This river too can change. You can imagine now kind of connecting more into some stronger currents. And let your body really feel the current moving through you. So you have a little tone in the muscles, no longer kind of that lazy feeling, but go with a sort of circular current movement. So no movement is linear, straight, or rigid. You have a little bit more energy as the riverbanks come in a little stronger. You can feel that energy in your body. You might even come down. You could take your feet even a little wider, come down into a bit of a squat. Let your hips move. Let your belly move around a little bit. Let your shoulders move. Let this be an exploration in your own body. Sort of see what flow you can connect into. Make it an intention to move into all the planes. Take some time a little behind you, in front, overhead, down below, out to the sides. And keep with a few of those mouth exhales. They're moving energy and connecting in. Now take your feet quite wide if you haven't already. And turn your left foot
out on a diagonal. You can turn your right foot so it's parallel and then come over into a little side lunge. You take your hands on the inside and just forward of your foot. Bend your back knee. It might feel a little weird. Sometimes we're in this position, we keep that back leg straight. Bend the back knee and then swish your hips around a little. So you're gonna go a little deeper into the hips. And then flow your fingers over to the other side. Switch the feet so that we're calling it the back foot. Left foot is angled in a little more to the long edge of the mat. Turn the right foot out and then bend the back knee. It'll give you a little more freedom in your hips. You can sway. Feel the work in the legs. Enjoy the body. And then come back to center with your hands. Turn your feet parallel, relatively parallel. And bend the knees deeply. Take your hands back. So I take my hands back, I put the palms on the floor, and then as I bend, the thighs come down on your elbows, give you a little support. And you can pump your hips up and down a few times. And then heel toe your feet in a few steps. Feel free to bend the knees a little, flow the arms out to the sides, come up. And bring the arms down. You set the feet in a little closer, like outer hip distance wide. And we're gonna do a little shaking. So you can imagine now the bubbling waters of the rapids. And move. Shake. You can shake your head. You can shake your behind. You can shake a leg. Shake your arms. And so everything gonna shake out. And then with your feet a little more than outer hip distance apart, turn both toes out slightly. Bring your arms up, take a breath in, and exhale, we're gonna come into goddess pose. Sit back with your hips. Just being there, you can pump up and down a little bit. It's real easy in your knees. And then sweep the arms down, come down deeper into the squat. See if you can squat all the way down. If it's hard to squat all the way down, you can bring elbows onto your knees. If you can't squat all the way down, come all the way down. Root your feet into the floor, and then imagine like you're gonna pull your feet a little closer towards each other. They won't move, but you're gonna pull them in. Feel a little lift up from the base of the pelvis. And then let that be like, kind of like a geyser that shoots you up and stand up. Release the arms down. Bring the arms up, come into goddess pose. It's a little gentle pumping up and down. And again, we're gonna go down a little deeper. You can put elbows on your knees. You come into what we call umpire pose, or all the way into the squat. Hug in and geyser up. Now flow down like a waterfall. Release down into simple standing forward bend. You can turn the feet now so they're more parallel. Drop your head, release it. Let the weight of your torso flow down. Just being here. And any pause, this presencing sensation. What's happening inside? So where are you at now? And then with your knees lightly bent, especially if you have any issues in your lower back, any challenges there, take the arms wide and flow all the way up again. Touch the hands overhead. Let them flow down. Centering right in front of the heart center. Maybe step your feet in a little closer. About inner hip distance wide now. And then take one hand onto your lower belly. Really spread it out. You take the other hand onto your sacrum. And you can either put the back of your hand against the back of your pelvis, or if you want a little bit more of an opening for the shoulder, and that's not stressful on your shoulder or your wrist, you put the palm of your hand on the back of your pelvis. And stand here in mountain pose. Feel your feet on the ground. Remember, the river rests in the bed of the river, in the mud. So get that feeling of ground underneath you. And then feel again the flow of your breath. And see if you can feel the movement of the breath. Both you'll feel expansion in the belly, but bring your attention back away from the surface and more into the interior of your body. So you feel the breath like a balloon expanding and releasing in right in front of your sacrum. Sacrum, that big sacred bone on the back of your pelvis, bottom of your spine. It has a little cup shape to it. Imagine it holding the energy of your breath. And then switch your hands, especially if you had the back of your hand on your pelvis, but either way, and stretch the other arm out a little. And just stay with that, finding the feeling of your breath. And what you might find is that as you dive your attention deeper in the body, and feel that movement of breath, not so much on the surface, but on the inside, there is a little more feeling of like containment and banks, strength. So containment, especially of our energy or our emotional body, containment is not about damping down or kind of holding back. It's more about bringing the energy and awareness in so you can feel more the truth of that energy. All right, now go ahead and drop your arms. You can shake them out, especially, I know for me, when I have my hand on the sacrum like that, it's a real stretch in my forearm. See if any of you felt that as well. Just shake that out. Then you can turn and face towards me if you're not already. I wanted to do a little experiment with you. Take your hands on where your index fingers are resting on your navel. You can spread the rest of the fingers around. Most of you have done a good amount of yoga with me, and you know that you never hear me say, pull your navel to your spine, right? In fact, some of you probably remember that I said, don't say that. Right. But right now, I want you to do it. Pull your navel to your spine. Pull it in. And feel what happens. Now, I can no longer breathe or speak very well, but really pull it in. Okay, it doesn't hurt to engage those abdominal muscles, get them working a little bit. Now let them go. Now I want you to really pay attention to what you feel, both while you pull your navel in towards your spine and what happens when you let go. I'm gonna have you do it another time or two, and then I'll describe a little what I feel, because sometimes that helps people put their attention into different places. So pull your navel in towards your spine. Just notice what you feel, not just the contraction of your abs, but what else happens in your body. And then let it go. See what happens. Now, for me, when I pull my navel into my spine, I actually feel like my feet almost want to lift up off the floor. I'm no longer very grounded. And when I let that go, then I feel like, oh, I touched the earth again. See if that connects at all for you. May or may not. Our experience isn't necessarily the same. But what I also feel, and you could do it again, pull the navel in towards the spine, it pulls my chest down. And it creates this tension in my neck. Okay, let's let that go. Wiggle it out, stretch it out. So I'm going to give you an image to explore and to play with. And this image is back to where we were with the breath. And the image that I suggested there was that when you breathe, there's a balloon, and it expands and relaxes. There's like this pulsation on the interior of your body, and it goes out circumferentially. It doesn't go just from the front. It's not like out and in, right? It goes in all directions. Like the river, it fully fills its banks. And then your core contraction, so if we do abdominal work or core work, the core contraction is just hugging in around that without limiting the ability for that movement of the breath. Because you might have also noticed if you pull your navel towards your spine, you can't breathe as well, right? So I want you to see if you can get that feeling. And with your sacrum and your low belly, it's like they do kind of come in towards each other a bit. But it's not like you're trying to put your belly in your sacrum or push your sacrum forward. It's like they come in. But you can still breathe very fully. And hopefully you feel your abdominal muscles, this whole sheath, which is the deepest abdominals, your transverse abdominis, right? There's a whole sheath that even connects into the fascia of your back. You feel that engage. And you may not breathe quite as deeply, but you can still breathe very fully. In fact, it feels like you can channel your breath. And that channel moves energy up and down. Anybody, are you following me? Raise your hand if that's making some sense to you. All right? Okay. So now we're going to take that down onto the floor. Come up to the, here's where you want your blanket. So you can put your blanket on your mat. If you're on carpet, the blanket may not be as necessary, but I find it's helpful for me because I'm on a hard floor. And then stand in mountain pose, the end of your mat. You can have the feet inner hip distance or a little wider. We're going to come into a squat here. So you see, and then for a lot of people, slightly turning the toes out is really helpful for the squat so that you don't jam into your hip joints. Fold forward to Uttanasana, standing forward bend. And then bend your knees and come down into a squat. Find to let your heels rise up Again, if the squat doesn't work for you, you can come for a moment just into that umpire pose with your knees bent, elbows on your knees. Take a couple of breaths here and see how deep you can sit into your pelvis. Breathing, and like we did in the earth class, you might even feel the base of your pelvis, the pelvic floor, opening and contracting a little bit with your breath. And then either, if you can sit down easily from here, you can sit back. If you need to use your hands, you can use your hands, sit back into the floor. And come to Baddha Konasana, the soles of your feet together, the knees out wide. Hold onto your ankles. Give a little pull with your arms and rock forward to the center or slightly forward of center on your sitting bones. And see if you can feel that expansive quality of breath in the deep belly. So as if you had like a glowing orb or a balloon right in front of your sacrum, pulsing. And then press your feet together. You might feel your knees raise up a little bit, but you're going to hug into the midline of your body. And even hug in through the sides of your waist. So you can feel the flow all the way up your spine. And still that pulsing orb or pulsation deep in the body. We're going to do a little core play and from lying down. So you could bring your knees up, feet on the floor, and then stretch your arms forward. You can slightly tuck your chin and roll all the way down onto the floor. Make sure your hips and your head are on the blanket. So you're on a single surface. Your feet can be off the blanket on the mat, it's fine. Bring your hands into your lower belly and find that quality of deep breath. So deep breath doesn't just mean like long breath with belly billowing out, but that deep breath, it's like more interior. And then do a blowing breath through your mouth, through your lips, like you're blowing through a long straw. And feel that whole circumferential engagement from the outside to the inside, just enough that it feels really firm. So you feel the firmness, but you can still breathe. It's not limiting your breath. And I'm doing it, and you notice the quality of my voice isn't changing. Where if I really contract, then it makes my voice sound like this. But if I hug in and I really find that quality of contained, expansive strength, my voice stays more full and vibrant too. Now you can let that go. Bring your arms into cactus pose, the same position as we did in goddess pose earlier. Rest on the center of your sacrum, the center back of your pelvis. So you have that little lightness under your lower back. And then do again that engagement. So it's circumferential from the outside to the inside. When you do that, it should not flatten your back strongly against the floor, even though your lower back might spread towards the back a little bit, nor will it pull your chest down towards your pelvis. Hold that now. Pick up your heels and walk your toes back towards your sitting bones, back towards your hips, and then float your feet up off the floor and come into this position with your knees right above your hips, the lower legs parallel to the ground. Keep holding the strength of that core container and breathe into it. And as you next exhale, take your right foot, stretch the right leg, and take your toes towards the corner where your floor and ceiling, your ceiling and wall meet. And then bring that foot back down so your lower leg's parallel to the ground. Now we're going to do the other side. Stretch the left, toes towards the corner where the ceiling and the wall meet, and then bring it down. See if you can do a few more just like that. Still breathing steady, holding the container of your body in a steady, balanced, riverbank strength. But imagine the flow through your leg to your toes goes right from that core center. See if you can do one more. Do rest if you need to. A little mouth exhale can be helpful. And then cross your ankles, drop your knees into your chest. Hold your knees. Rock a little side to side. You can go back into the lazy river. I love sitting in my kayak on flat water and just kind of watching clouds. Watching. You can imagine yourself on that water. Right, and then uncross the feet, hold your knees, move them away till they're right above your hips, float the lower legs up, and then contain in again. So it's really very specific. It's like from the edges, even the back, in, and right in the center, sitting in the sacrum, this pulsation of energy and breath, even as you now start to flow through the legs again. And you could again go toes towards the corner of the wall and the ceiling, or you could go more towards the center of the wall and reach as if you could reach that leg through a vibrant flow that comes right from the core of your being out to your toes. And play there. And you decide if you want a little more challenge, you feel really steady with this, you could take the leg so that it's a little more parallel to the ground. Not touching the ground yet, just reaching it out. And do one or two more. And then cross your ankles. Ideally, you remember which one was on top last time and cross the other way. Or you just cross the way that doesn't feel as natural. Drop your thighs in toward your belly. If you feel like some tension or tiredness in your back, or just or in your thighs, your quads, where they're really working to do that core work, you could put your feet on the floor here and wave your knees a little side to side. For some of you, it might feel very comfortable just let the thighs drop in across against the abdomen and rock a little across the back of the sacrum. And I'm going to do one more set. So you could again hold your knees, uncross the ankles. Move the knees so they're directly above the hips. Float the lower legs parallel to the ground. Bring your arms into that cactus position and engage. Draw in. Draw in to your center without contracting the center. The center still flows. And you can choose, you can do toes towards the corner where the wall and the ceiling meet. You can do to the center of the wall. You can do more parallel to the ground. Or you could keep the leg bent and take it forward and tap your toe onto the floor. And then slowly bring it back up. Now you can tap fairly far out and bring it back up. And you can play a little with going into different positions, so you don't have to do the same one over and over. You could even play a little with taking your legs slightly to the side. See what happens if you tap out there or reach out there. And do one or two more, and then drop your feet down to the floor. Bring the soles of the feet together, take the knees wide. Let the body breathe. Soften your face, relax your shoulders. I didn't say as much there while we were doing that exercise, but that can be so helpful to how can my face be relaxed and easy? It's like you want to express a sense of calm, even when there's all this sort of roiling engagement going on inside. That expression of calm isn't about denying the roiling, right? Again, it's about being able to direct that energy. Bring the knees up. Roll over onto your belly and come into crocodile pose for a moment. Forearms stacked, rest your forehead. Let your belly relax. Let the surface of the abdomen relax. Feel the breath here. Let it rise up a little underneath your sacrum. And then slide your hands underneath your shoulders, push up onto all fours. Come into a easy table pose. Firm your hands into the floor. Make sure you have the knees back far enough that you feel like you have a lot of space in the front. If your hands and knees are too close together, there'll be a kind of a shortening or a contraction. If your knees are too far back, then you have a dissipation of the energy. So you find that just right place where you can be present, full and firm. Again, press your hands into the floor and hug your arms in all the way from the outsides of your pinky fingers up to the outer edges of your shoulder blades. With a little lift of the lower belly, keep the low back broad, but without rounding your upper back. Step your knees perhaps a little closer together. We're going to do a flow now from here where we take the right leg back and the left arm forward and then set them back down into the floor. And each time you're going to do now the other side. We're just going to do this for a little while. Each time, see how little you can shift side to side. So that you really hold your center. You'll have to go over just a little bit since you're coming onto one knee, but the hips don't move much. You can contain in. Feel the riverbanks all the way from the tips of your toes to your fingertips. You hug into your center and reach. Let's do a few more. So you don't have to pull your navel toward your spine or even really engage your abs. You can be conscious about your body in space, how you're holding yourself, how you're supporting yourself, and move. One more. And then as you come down, take your knees a little wider than your hips, bring your big toes together, and sit back in an easy child's pose. Feel free to stack your forearms and rest your forehead on your arms. or to drop your head to the floor. Again, in this position, you may feel like you can feel that breath expanding all the way into the pelvic floor. Your pelvic floor is actually the foundation of the deep belly. And so any movement in your core or any engagement in your core will also impact the pelvic floor, and vice versa. They're not separate. They're very deeply connected. It's interesting on a kind of physical basis. You can go ahead and come back up onto your hands and knees now. But I'll just tell you, on a physical basis, you can engage your abdominals without engaging your pelvic floor. But you can't really engage your pelvic floor without your abdominals starting to kick on. So having awareness of the pelvic floor, of the earth, is really helpful for being able to connect into the deep core. All right, now we're going to come into downward facing dog pose or to puppy pose. So I know some of you, downward dog is not your friend for various reasons. You can come into puppy pose, getting a nice lengthening, or those of you who down dog is your friend, tuck your toes, lift your hips. Here, let's just pedal the heels out a little bit. Do keep that firm rooting into the ground through your hands and hug your arms in. So again, from the outside to the inside, from the periphery into the core, there's this sense of hugging in, those riverbanks strong. And within the river, then you flow and move. Now go ahead and stretch both heels down towards the floor. Take another breath. And then from here, excuse me, whether you're in puppy pose, if you're in puppy pose, come up to all fours. From here, you can go to your knees and then step your right foot forward, or just step your right foot up. You're going to take it all the way beyond the blanket, and I'm going to suggest you still have the blanket there because of what's coming. All right, but step your foot beyond the blanket so you've got the nice firm surface of your mat. Tuck your back toes under, and actually let me change that a little bit. Bring your hands to the inside of your right foot. And if you know you like to use a block in your standing poses, like side angle pose, which is where we're going, you can put the block there. All right, now we're going to lift that back knee and pivot the heel to the floor. So you're in a little variation of lizard pose. Now, as you've come into this lunge, root that back foot and the right hip, kind of hug it in a little bit. So notice if you kind of float out, that's a little loss of the riverbanks, like a flooding river. So you're going to hug in, and then bring your left hand up onto your sacrum. Enjoy a couple of breaths there. Bend your left knee slightly. That's the back leg. It's going to feel a little weird, but bend it. And then turn into side angle pose from the core of your belly. Stretch into that back leg, but keep it connected into the core. And you can reach the arm out as well. Harshva Konasana or side angle. Here is do you feel that deep pulsation? The flow inside. And then we're going to roll down. You can step back to downward dog or take the knee to the floor. And we'll switch sides. Bring the left foot up. Hands to the inside. And again, you can lift that back knee, pivot the heel, Just coming into this position, you might kind of lose the river a little bit. That hip flows out. Hug it in. When you hug it in, see if you can do that too without losing sensitivity in your hips and your belly. Bring the right hand up on your sacrum. A few breaths there, and even bend to the right knee and just see what happens. I feel like I go more down into the earth. I can really connect more deeply in the body. And then when I stretch the leg and turn, my intention is to not lose that. And even though I'm hugged into the center, the sacrum is not pushing forward. There's a little space inside there that I can flow from. Even reach the arm. And then release down. Drop the knee and step back. We're gonna do the other side again. So right foot forward. Back leg, back knee up, heel to the ground. Get both hands to the inside of the leg. Now bend that knee again, reach back. And one more time, just come into side angle pose. See what you can feel in the pose. And I can give you a lot of cues, possibilities, curiosities that I have. See, where's your curiosity? What's happening inside you as you come into this posture? And hold it for a breath or two. Then come down, and we're going to walk around into Prasarita Padottanasana. Wide legs, standing forward bend. Have the feet more parallel. Bend the knees and swish your hips a little side to side. And then walk around to the other side. Go into the deep lunge, bending that left knee. Bend your right leg a little bit. Get into your real core, not on the outside. And then flow into the pose from there. See if you can feel when your sacrum starts to push in or your glutes over contract, your thighs go forward. So you can keep more kind of bubbly, buoyant, watery. And then flow down, walk around back to the standing forward bend. Wiggle your hips. And then you can come up on your fingertips, step one foot in, come to your knee, and then the other foot. So you come into kneeling. And we're kneeling towards the long edge of the mat. Bring your big toes together and slide your knees wide on the blanket. Bring into this variation of Asana or frog pose. You can shift your hips a little back and forth. Opening up this inner thighs a bit more. And come down onto your elbows. Now be sensitive with your lower back here. So you're not moving from your back. And see if you can kind of stir your belly around a bit. Do you feel like you have a little gentle whirlpool inside? You can move it around. And then switch the direction, moving it around. And then from your belly, reach one arm forward. And slide it back in. And then reach the other arm forward. And slide it back in. And you can either stay here for just a little bit longer, or those of you who feel like you'd like to bring the chest down to the floor, you can stretch both arms forward, but keep that aliveness in your belly. So you're not just hanging in the pose, you're not like collapsing like a puddle. There's a lot of vibrancy and life in the pelvis, in the core, in the breath. And then you can walk your hands back, come up, walk your knees in, and then sit to the right side of your feet. So feet angled over to the left. You'll be sitting more on your right buttock. You can let that left sitting bone be kind of like a little stone dropped into a pond. Let it drop. Let it drop. And then lengthen up through your spine as if from way deep underneath you. If you think about that left sitting bone dropping like that stone, it's like it drops down all the way into the mud, and there's a little reverberation up, bubbles floating up all the way through your spine, and you can take that into your twist, kind of bubble around into Bharadvajasana. As you come around to the right, you can have your right fingertips back behind. You're not trying to push your left hip down to the floor, like put the left buttock on the ground. See if you can find that energetic release again of the weight. And then turn from the depths. So you're not just turning and kind of spiraling up and out of your body. You're very, very deep in your body. And the twist has that quality of deep presence. Unwind. Swing your feet around in front and then over to the other side. And you can pause, feel the weight dropping down in through that left buttock, firm on the ground. And then bring a little attention to the right side too. Like you're dropping a little stone in. And you can imagine in your conscious awareness that stone going all the way down, sinking to the bottom, and then the little bubble up. Like there's air in the mud, so the little bubbles come up, and you can follow that up through your spine and then into the twist. And as you come into the twist, be conscious of how that spiral can tend to take us up and out. If you can see me, I'm kind of showing you. It's like the whole body goes that way, but I can release back in, go for my core, and the twist becomes a greater depth. This is our work with emotions too, right? To not feel emotions less, to feel them more and be able to kind of use that energy then to make a difference, to do what we want to do. Come back to center, swing your feet out in front, and then turn, so you're in the long edge of your mat. Bring the feet so they're about outer hip distance apart. You can hold your shins for a moment. Lengthen up through your spine. And when you do that, see if you can still feel like you're breathing through your whole core and containing in. Stretch your arms forward. You're gonna open your fingers out wide, reach in. Your arms are part of this container, so you're hugging in towards the midline. Chest still broad, but the heart really full in your chest. And then you can slowly start to lower back. And we're gonna go. So I'm blowing out. And you might feel your abdomen pushing in a little, pulling in when you blow. Now, lift back up again. I only went down about halfway. So if you need to watch for a moment to get a sense of it, I'm going to do it without speaking so much. But I'm hugging in and then notice when the belly comes in, I'm not pulling my chest down. The chest stays lifted. And then back up. We're going to do that again. Nice breath in. And back up. Relax your arms. Move your head around. Wiggle your shoulders. See how that's impacting your back. Ideally, you don't have any sense of stress in the back. If you do, then on this next one, as you go down, if you're feeling this stress in your back, I want you to put your hands back and do the work here. So you're giving yourself a little more support. All right, stretch your arms forward. And this time, we're gonna go all the way down. So if you have to put your hands back, that's fine, then you come on your elbows. Those of you who can keep reaching forward, keep blowing breath out. See if you can go all the way down and keep your feet on the floor. So your feet don't pop up off the ground as you ease yourself down onto the earth. And then you can stretch the legs out, stretch the arms out, wiggle around a little bit. And then bend your knees, put your feet on the floor. Stretch your arms forward and see if you can reverse that. Ooh, and come up. My feet came off the floor a little bit on that one, but well, you just see what you can do, right? Shift a little side to side. Walk your feet in, hold behind your thighs. I'm actually going to give you a choice. So you could do that again where you roll down, or those of you who want to play with Navasana, boat pose, you're going to walk your feet in, pick your feet up off the floor, and then lengthen the legs out. You can do your blowing breath. Chug like a little tugboat. Even try to stretch your arms out. And then flow down to half boat. And then all the way down to the floor. And stretch your legs out, stretch your arms out. Oh, wiggle a little bit. Windshield wiper your legs a bit, release the thighs. Bend the knees again, feet on the floor. Open your arms wide and do a slow, easy windshield wiper twist. A very gentle rain. Oh, where's the rain come from? The rain comes from, of course, the river and the ocean being willing to give the water up to the sky. And then it drips back down to refill the river. And your knees come up and give the water up to the sky. And then feel it flow back down to fill the river. Let's do one more to each side. Nice inhale to bring the knees up and exhale, flow them down and over. And last one. Keep them over to the side. You get a little bit more stretch and length across the quads. Often in boat pose and other abdominal kind of play that we do, people really use their quads, even the psoas, more or as much as the abdominals. So let's just let that relax a little. If you like, you could step the bottom foot up on top of the top knee and just let the weight of that leg give you a little deeper stretch. Still breathing in the core. And especially if you put your foot up on your knee, you might feel your sacrum start to kind of push up. See if you can release that back a little. It can have that little stony energy too that drops back. So you feel very full inside. Then step that foot down, bring the knees up. Last time to the other side. Take the knees over, pause there, and just let the weight of your top leg drop and release out, releasing from the belly. Kind of like things can just flow out to your knee. And then if you like, take the foot up on top of the knee, giving a little more weight, a little more length. And even though all this energy is going towards the knee now, you come and you let the sacrum drop back a little. It's not a physical action. It's more this awareness. The lens of your attention is very strong if you allow it to be. Let the weight of your sacrum drop back slightly so you feel very full inside. Everything's not draining out. You're very present here. Then step that foot off, bring the knees up, adjust any amount so you bring the back of your pelvis, right buttock, left buttock, fairly even on the floor. Adjust any amount, your shoulders, you feel like your shoulder blades both rest underneath your upper torso and they spread wide, and let the water of your heart, this is an emotional center too, right? Let it kind of flood down into your shoulder blades, into the earth, like a deep lake. Releasing in. And then one at a time, stretch your legs out. And let go the weight of your legs. If you do find as you get here, there's a tug on your lower back or this is uncomfortable, do feel free to roll to your side, come up, get a blanket roll or a bolster to put under your knees. But you might find too that you can just let the whole body rest into the ground. And you could either for a moment, so if you love water, you're not afraid of water, you could imagine sort of sinking down under the surface of the river and feeling the flow go over the top of you. You let yourself really drop down into the muddy bed and just feel that flow moving past you. If that's a little scary for you or uncomfortable, climb out of the river like we did in the beginning and just lie beside the river. Imagine on the bank there, hearing the flow, feeling the flow go by. Either way, it's like we're going to sink back down into the earth, into deep presence, and let the flow of the world do what it does. No need to get carried away. can be simply here in your own space, your own inner world, strengthening your capacity for presence with yourself. Now allow your awareness to begin to rise back up to the surface of your body, and then as if you could float up a little bit. If you're laying on the bank, you're there. If you're in the water, coming up so your face just breaks the surface of the water. And then you can slowly open your eyes. Just let the light filter in. And even if you're just looking at a ceiling in your house, imagine the sky. Light filtering through tree branches. And feel the expansiveness around you. But you're still here in your body. Step your feet in and plant your feet into the floor. When you're ready, roll to your side. And you can come up to sitting. And sit. You take your hands over your heart, or one over your belly and one over your heart. Thanks for being here today. Namaste to you. As usual, I'm happy to stay a few minutes if you have any questions or anything you'd like to share. Change my camera. There we go. How are you doing?
Good.
Hi, Glenn.
Hi.
Did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, just a comment that when you began the practice, I found myself linking to last Friday's practice and
Mhm.
kind of doing the same thing, Mula Bandha, and I had to pay a little closer attention. And what helped is to just allow on my in breath, not only a focus on the pelvic floor and my hip joint, which I think I had been doing, but to let the breath balloon out more in the back body, like my back, waist, and sacrum. And
Mhm.
so the balloon was fuller and the container was fuller and stronger then. And so I guess it was my way of linking to the sacrum a little more
Mhm.
than I had than just Mula Bandha.
Mhm.
And then especially in certain um, movements and poses we did, like side angle, I found that quite helpful to let the breath flow into the
Yeah.
back of my waist area. Anyway, so I just an observation.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Are you familiar with Uddiyana Bandha?
Well, yeah, I've heard you talk about it, but I don't remember it too well.
Yeah. So I likely won't talk about it that much. I don't really teach in that context so much, but it's definitely related. And I think of like what we're gonna do next week will be a little bit more with exploring the continued rise of energy, which is Uddiyana means to fly up, right?
Okay.
And the Bali, the core we did today is like that space in between, that connection in between Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha. So
Okay.
yeah, so
Yeah.
see what happens. Yeah. Hi, Casey.
Feeling very watery
Yeah.
for this practice. I had a neat experience. So we did the little toe tap sequence, the leg extensions, the toe taps, and then flipped over and did the like bird dog flowing sequence. And oftentimes I feel um, like I need to contain like actively find support in my outer hip of the kneeling leg. But
Mhm.
today it felt like it was more effortless, like
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
I didn't need to
Beautiful.
like hold so much to make it happen.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It was neat.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was part of my intention too. Like sometimes I think, we get instructions in yoga um, about the containment, but the containment becomes like the point.
Mm.
And the containment isn't the point. The point is to be able to connect to that inner flow, right? But the containment is necessary.
Mhm.
So it's that paradox.
Mm.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Hi, partner.
Um, Hi, I realized, hello, Glenn and Casey. I realized that I do not have as much. When I got into side angle pose, I realized I couldn't feel my breath in the belly area.
Mhm.
So I didn't really have any gems to contribute like Casey and Glenn. So I need to work on it. That's my gem, I guess.
Yeah, so the gem and the gem might be too. So play around with warrior two pose and with side angle pose, even triangle pose a little, though it's harder because the hamstrings of the front leg. But try with your back knee a little bent
Ah,
and explore that when you bend the back knee, if you can help, if it helps the energy drop down so you feel a little more of that spacious breath.
okay.
Yeah, and then when you straighten the leg, so what I find, if you just straighten the leg, the breath will contract again. So you have to play then with, okay, now that I have the breath, can I straighten the leg, even reach the arm without losing that? Yeah,
Got it.
and you kind of go in and out, so you can get the pulse.
That's great. I do have a quick question for teaching. So I will be frank, I have used I don't say pull your navel to your spine, but I say draw your navel towards your spine. But don't be harsh. I have had a challenge explaining that to my my chair yoga students who are 60 and above.
Yeah.
And
But that means, you mean draw your navel towards your spine?
yeah, well, I use that.
I just wouldn't say that. I would try to cue more this whole band.
Yeah.
And you could say like this, there's a whole band of muscle, and you can firm that band in. So you could say something like that, but navel towards the spine is just too kind of focused, and it will inspire more contraction to the rectus abdominis than to the transverse abdominis. And so if you can get the feeling, you could also use like, some of the cues we might use are like, find your two pelvic bones and pull them towards each other. Okay.
Yes.
So those kinds of cues, I think, are just more helpful than navel towards the spine, like pulling in at the navel, because the transverse abdominis is lower than that, and it does attach into the fascia of the back. So we want more of this feeling, not of in like this way, right? That's the navel towards the spine is like that, right? I want more of this kind of feeling in from the outside to the center, not pinpoint in one spot to the middle.
Okay. So one other thing that happens is when I ask them to, okay, maybe firm your belly, do that little thing, and then can you feel a firmness below your belly button? And many of them will come back and say, I have too much flesh there, or I can't really feel anything.
Yeah. Right. No problem, because that's their experience. Okay. So if you consistently get, no, I don't feel it, then quit asking. Don't say, can you feel it? Just say, feel it. Okay. So questions can be really helpful teaching tools, right? Mm-hmm. But if every time you ask a question, then the answer is like, no, I don't feel that, right? Then there's a disconnect. So you could just say, feel it, or you could say, oh, I really feel like, kind of a deep engagement of my lower belly, or a drawing into the core. You could say you might feel, instead of saying can you feel it, you say you might feel, because that triggers more of a curiosity in the mind. Can you feel is like yes or no answer, right? I use it often. Can you feel, do you feel, whatever. But it's just a way for you to consider, like, okay, they keep saying no, so there's something. So you say you might feel, and then it's like this little curiosity, and they go like, well, do I? Oh, I might feel it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's just a continuation of your play with language, and like, what are different ways to say what you're trying to say to help the student's mind engage in a different way with the body.
Okay, thank you. That is helpful.
Yeah, Glenn.
Just wanted to say, a part of the line of inquiry that you and dialogue that you initiated was a gem.
Thank you.
I agree.
All right. Well, we lost a couple people before we got to here, but I'll check in with them. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
If you're watching the recording later and you have questions you want to send to me, you're always very welcome to. And until next time, take good care.
Namaste.
Namaste. Bye.